recorded in the beautiful mountains of British Columbia. Welcome to
Friends on Horses.
Today on the podcast, we will be talking horses and photography with Krystina Lynn. Krystina competes in the disciplines that she captures on film, which gives her insight into the kind of photographs that matter to the client. Krystina has herself finished 7th in Alberta, 7th in Canada, and ranks 48th in the world as a real cutting talent. This year, she was hired as the official photographer for the Inaugural Canadian Spectacular Limited Aged event, which is a pretty darn big deal. Welcome to Friends on Horses, Krystina.
Thank you for having me.
We're super excited to have you with us. One question that I just had right off the bat was, what brought you to photography?
Funny story behind that one. My sister has always competed a lot more frequently than I have. I've always kind of been a behind the scenes sort of type. And she bought a fancy camera and said, here, take pictures of me while I show, because at that point in time, there weren't a lot of show photographers out there. So you didn't have the dime a dozen. Everyone has a camera at all these shows. So that's kind of what started it. I have my sister to blame.
And as Emma mentioned in the intro, you also participate in cutting competitions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of everything, but yeah, cutting is my focus now.
And so when did horses start for you?
Very, very early on. My mom had horses when she was a kid and actually gave up horses to have a family. And it only took a couple of years of my sister and I being around before mom got back into horses. Oops, as I bumped my camera, sorry. So yeah, she had us in the English world for the longest time. So my background originated in the hunter jumper world. And then moved into Western performance sports.
Interesting transition. How the heck did that happen?
I had actually dislocated my shoulder. Completely unhorse related. I had fallen down rollerblading, and anyways, the rehab and stuff that I had to go through made it really, really hard to ride two-handed with heavy contact with the thoroughbreds and warm bloods that I was used to riding.
Right.
So I was looking for an avenue where I could ride one-handed, take some pressure off. So I started reining, probably in my, I want to say mid-late teens was when I started reining. And then that introduced me to the Western performance world. And now I focus on cutting.
Very cool. Neat that an injury actually led you to, took you down an avenue to a different sport in the horse world, hey?
Yeah, totally. I couldn't give it up. And that's what the doctor wanted me to do.
And you're
at
like,
least until everything healed. And yeah, I'm out there riding my Arab around in a Western saddle and Western bridle with my arm hugging to my chest.
And all of your English friends are going, what the heck is this girl doing?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And speaking of that, for some of our listeners who might not know what cutting is, can you explain cutting?
I will try and give you the short and sweet of it. Basically, it's riding Western. One-handed. I know there's a lot of lower level that is two-handed, but where I'm at, it's one-handed. And you're working cattle. So you have a large herd of cows in the arena, pardon me. And the goal is for you to go in on your horse through the herd and isolate one cow, bring one cow out to the top of the arena and prevent it from returning to the herd best you can. And you have 3 opportunities in the time span of 2.5 minutes to get your cows cut clean. So
wow.
it's a lot of fun.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that there's a designated cow that you're going into that herd for.
You're trying to pick one that's not gonna run all over the place on you, but at the same time you don't want to pull one that's just gonna stand there and hang out and look at you like, hey, how's it going?
Huh. And so what are you as a rider looking for in the cow?
You're looking for something quiet, but not something with its head buried in the herd. If its head is buried in the herd, you're going to have a really hard time pulling it out to the front of the herd and isolating it.
Okay.
But if its tail is up in the air, that's not something that you want to bring to the top, because it's going to run you wall to wall on every turn. And in the cutting world, your pen is divided into 3 parts, and you want to try to keep your working time in the middle third and avoid going to the outside thirds as much as you can, and you get points gained for that.
Interesting. And I am assuming that that they, for the level of riding that you're riding at, they pick cows very specifically. There's probably top level cows for this sport. Yeah.
Definitely. So gosh, I don't know what more else to say about that. It's hard without actually seeing it to explain it much further than that, but yeah, it's a thrill.
Full disclosure to all of our listeners, Krystina and I are friends from way back when I had my horse at a barn that we used to both be at. And I remember some of the fun things watching all of you gals doing in the arena, like the flag, like chasing the thing on the string down the wall.
The mechanical cow,
Yeah, the mechanical cow. I remember how strong your horses had to be and agile. And as someone who pays a lot of attention to mechanics, a lot of power and lateral movement, moving really quickly. At least as an observer. As a cutter, what do you look for in a cutting horse?
In a cutting horse, I want something that's solid but not massive, if that makes sense. I want something that I know is going to hold up physically to the demands that we're placing on the horse. Cutting, while it's a natural drive for the horse to want to work a cow, what we ask them to do in the show pen is very unnatural, as is a lot of what we do with horses. So I look for something that's really going to hold up, strong bone, strong tendon, strong muscle, without being overbodied. If they're too heavy and too dense, then that can be cumbersome to move across the pen as quickly as they do as well. So, and it's funny, a lot of people gonna go for the more quiet-minded horse that they know is gonna kind of be solid and steady, whereas a lot of cutters will go for something with a little bit of spice in there, because they're gonna throw the effort in way more than the calm and quiet steady Eddie is going to. So throw that competitive edge in there.
Interesting.
Very cool.
There's a specific breed of horse that you would lean towards more than others?
Quarter horses are pretty much where it's at in the cutting world. They've got the most natural drive and physically built better to do the sport than other breeds.
Those awesome butts that can really plant behind them and use that power in whichever direction. Quarter horse butts are the best.
Totally. Oh, I should also mention, as far as conformation goes, you don't want something too straight. A straighter hind-ended horse would make a much better cow horse, for instance, than a cutting horse. A cutter is expected to really get their hind end into the ground and use their hind end a lot harder than a cow horse or a jumper or a dressage horse, in a different facet, I suppose. So if there's a little more angle to that hind leg, it makes that a lot more able for them to complete.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Very interesting.
So, as Emma mentioned earlier, you were the photographer for the inaugural Canadian Spectacular Limited age event.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you can tell us just about what that was like.
It was exhilarating. It was really cool to shoot such a high-profile show. I've shot cuttings for many years, mostly smaller scale shows or unsanctioned shows, but this was a major event taking the place of another major event that last year announced that they were no longer going to be hosting this show, called the Canadian Supreme. So with the closure of the Supreme, the cutting world kind of stepped up the Supreme was really one of the few good limited aged events that we have here in Canada. The majority of the aged event stuff is down south in the States. So the loss of that show was a pretty big hit to the cutting community. And a bunch of people banded together and put a plan in place and brought back a cutting specific limited aged event. At the Supreme, they included reining and working cow horse as well as cutting. So at this point, this event is specifically for the cutting horse world, but I think it's a step in the right direction for what we needed. And it was an absolutely fantastic show. It for a first time show, it went off without a hitch. It was big. All of the big hitters that we really were hoping would come out came out.
Wow.
And it was so cool to see people from all over Western Canada and the US as well come up for this show.
So can you give us an idea of just like a big show? How many competitors are we talking?
The limited aged events are usually run over, depending on the show, 3 or 4 days. So we're usually talking, this year I think they were at 150 works a day, thereabouts.
Wow.
So the smaller shows, you'll be around 90 works a day. The bigger shows, if you went down to the States, they'll start at 6 a.m. and keep going till 4 o'clock in the morning, as long as they get through all of their entrants. So for Canada, this was a decent sized show.
Wow, very cool. And what the heck do you do to get ready for an event like this as a photographer?
As a photographer, this was the first show that I ever had a booth set up at. So there was a lot of preparation involved there, which was really exciting. And I got to kind of bring my creative side out a little bit to create a booth that really reflected me and who I am and what my photography is. I had to have samples made so that folks could see what their options are for ordering their images from the show. I also had some images from portrait sessions and other sessions that I do as well, so that folks can see that I have a fairly broad spectrum that I like to cover. And the gear, collecting the gear, it was expensive to get ready for. I didn't quite end up having everything I wanted for the show, but I think I had what I needed. And it went really well. So I'm excited to take it forward from there this coming year.
That's so cool. How do you keep track of who you are taking photos of when they come to your booth to ask for photos of them?
Every set, they call it. So every time they bring in a fresh herd of cows for that group of riders to compete on, I'll change out my memory card. I'll take my card up to the booth, plug it into my computer, dump my card. And then I was lucky enough to have my lovely boyfriend there to assist me this year, or this past year. And during the herd settle for the next division, or for the next herd even, he would sort all of my images for me. We were given an order of go at the beginning of the day. And then he would put every run into its own folder with the horse and rider as the title of the folder, so that when folks came back to the booth after, they gave him the class that they were in and then the name of their horse. And then he was able to pull up their folders so they could go through all of their images.
So the trick is have a good assistant.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have shot many shows solo without having help. And even without having a booth set up, it's still a lot of work to do by yourself. Good help is key.
And what kind of things when you're at the event, when you're at the show, how do you capture those right moments? What are you looking for? I mean, I guess being as you are someone who also competes in these types of events, you probably know more what people are looking for. But what's your process?
I think competing in the sport and knowing horses as well as I do definitely aids in the process. I think that's where I have a bit of a step up on some of the competition in the equine horse show photography world. I know what moments I look for in a shot if I'm purchasing an image from a photographer, but I also know how everyone's opinions can vary. What moment I think is ideal isn't necessarily the same moment that Dan, my boyfriend, thinks is ideal. I tend to like the technically correct shots where everything looks quiet The horse is focused on the cow, ears are forward, maybe there's a front leg cocked, and everything is just in time and flowing. Whereas Dan will look at shots and look for the really big flashy moves where the front legs are out on this side and the cow is still over here, and you see that massive snap back. So it's a little bit of knowing what I like and what I know other people look for as well. And I do my best to get my timing right and watch the cow the best I can. If I watch the cow, it'll tell me what the horse is going to do next. And that really helps in making sure that I'm getting my timing right when I take the shot.
I'm going to squirrel here for a moment. Some of the photos that you took of me and my horse Lexus, when you just were starting to do this more professionally, which was, I feel like, 1 million years ago.
Yep. It was some time back. Yep.
Are still some of my favorite pictures. And my dear grandmother, there's one photo that you took of Lexus. I've got this Arab mare, Lexus, who I still have, by the way. Yeah, and where you did the, it's like her head, but everything else is black. And that is still my grandmother's all-time favorite photo.
Aw, that's awesome. I love to hear that.
So you were very, very talented from the very beginning, and it's been cool for me to see you on Instagram and check out your website and just see that has continued to grow.
Yep. Yeah. It's been a process, that's for sure. And the black backdrop shot that I did for you, those are still my favorite today. I've just improved on them tenfold, so maybe we'll have to do that again one day.
It's a deal. We'll get you out to the Kootenays for a photo shoot at some point.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And so you've done bigger show photo shoots. Do you do smaller shoots as well, kind of like what Emma was just describing, just sort of the more one-on-one?
Yes, absolutely. Those are my favorite. Those are the ones that really let me interact with the people that I'm photographing and capture who they are. Those are my absolute favorite. Very
cool. And give us some of the challenges working one-on-one with people. So when
I think the biggest challenge is you're working with animals. You can't pick them up and place them and expect them to stay there and tell them, oh, just look like an inch and a half to the left or lift your chin just a little bit. You don't have that option when it comes to animals. So again, timing is key, as it is in the show pen. It is outside of the show pen as well. And carrying little tools and tricks that will help get the attention of a horse or a dog or a pig or anything really. I have a little squeaker that I carry around to try and help get attention when we're on a shoot. If I can bring an assistant, I will. That's ideal. Or if whoever I'm doing the shoot for can have someone available to help us out to place feet or to try and get attention for a certain look or certain shot. Those are all things that I've learned play huge into doing private sessions for folks, just the same as it does when you're running a big show like the Spectacular. So.
Interesting. And I bet there are many shots that turn out where the horse looks spectacular, but the human is blinking. And timing both the horse and the person to make them both look fantastic at the same time takes some skill.
Yep, that can be a challenge. I'll usually finally get the horse exactly where I want them. I take the shot and I look at the camera. I'm like, oh.
Well, that kind of leads to another question that I had, which is, for all those competitors out there who, it's amazing when you come back to the photo booth after your class and there is that amazing photo there that has just captured all of it. Is there any tip that you would give the competitors for setting themselves up for success to capture that perfect moment?
I would say set yourself up for success in your class, period. If you're in the right mindset to go in there and lay it down and give it your all and do your best, I find that half the time people get that determined look on their face, and some people, they either love it or they hate it. But I've found if you're going into the show pen with the right mentality where you're going to own it, you're going to do well, that helps the most to get the right shot at the right time when it comes to the photography end of things. If you look like you're determined and you're focused to do what you're going to do, that I think outweighs the pretty smile mid-stop or mid-turn or whatever, right? I think that doesn't look natural. So, I mean, that's my own personal take on it. That's what I will look for. Might be different maybe in the dressage world or flat classes, where you're focused more on presentation and what you look like and what people are thinking of how you're sitting and the expression on your face and all of that. But when it comes to the Western performance sports, like, go in there with sheer grit and determination. I think those are the shots you're going to think are the coolest in the end. Your horse is going to perform the best for you, and you're going to look like you're in it to win it.
Very, very cool. Very cool. So basically, prepare like you're preparing for a show.
Yep.
And show up.
Don't even think about the photographer.
Okay, and then it's true. Then it speaks for itself. Watching a good team, watching a spectacular horse and rider together performing is a beautiful thing to look at, anyways. So I can imagine there's lots of beautiful moments to capture as a photographer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so here is a question. For the average civilian cell phone photographer,
Yeah.
taking pictures of their own horses or themselves or their friends at shows, any tips for the regular person to improve their photo game?
Well, it's funny because there's a lot of camera phones out there nowadays that are winning photo contests. So you don't necessarily have to have all the fancy gear to get something cool at the right moment. I think for me, the biggest thing to look at is perspective. So you want to try to make it not look like a cell phone picture or like a point and shoot picture. So take a look at some of the photos that I produce or some other photographers produce and see they're not shooting down on their image, they're shooting even or just a little bit below their image, and it really helps with the perspective of the horse. It doesn't make that giraffe neck happen that can sometimes happen if you're not in the right positioning. The other thing that I always look at, doesn't matter if I'm shooting with my good camera or with my cell phone, is the background. I want there to be a nice clean background behind my image, not a whole bunch of broken down buildings or cars or things that are going to take away from what the focus of your shot is.
That's really good advice. What about lighting, like time of day, or I'm sure lighting must get complicated to talk about.
Yeah. Very much so. And I am 95% right now a natural light photographer. I don't use a lot of lights in my work. So utilizing natural light is definitely key, and there's definitely good points in the day that are going to be better than others. They call it the golden hour. It's the last hour of daylight right before the sun sets, where everything kind of has a nice soft warm hue to it. That's my favorite time of day to shoot. I want you to try and avoid mid-afternoon bright harsh daylight. Or some people might think this is funny, but a cloudy day is your best friend when it comes to having balanced light to shoot outdoors. And then for indoors, look at where your light's coming from. Try to eliminate shadows the best you can. Like how I'm sitting in front of my phone right now isn't exactly ideal because I've got light on one side of my face and harsh shadows on the other side. But with my house, good luck. So I know that that's a challenge as well. So really just look at where your light's coming from. You don't want to place your image directly in the brightest spot, but you want to try to reduce shadows the best you can.
Good answer.
I'm curious if you're training for any competitions in this upcoming show season. Just you yourself as a competitor.
I'm actually not this year. That's not something that I have actually publicly said yet, even. This year,
Well, here it is.
yeah, surprise. Last season I moneyed out of the division that I ride in, and while there's divisions that I could step up into, I've decided that it's time to take a bit of a break from showing hard and focus on expanding my photography and expanding my knowledge and my client base, and really making that my focus this year. So no big shows for me. We've actually semi-retired the gelding that I was showing last year as well. He was showing some soreness signs at the end of the season, so rather than keep pushing him to a point where he's broken, I'd rather quit while we're ahead. And he and I did great last year. Again, like you said, we were 7th in Canada, 7th in Alberta, and 48th in the world. The year prior, we were 5th in Canada. So he's done fantastic. He's in his younger years with Dan showing him. He's Dan's horse. He won a number of aged events in BC. He showed in Texas. So he deserves a break. He's just going to chill. And I'm so excited for that, for him, just to enjoy being a horse. And we'll hopefully get another one and then see what happens from there.
Wonderful. That's very exciting.
Yeah.
And speaking of focusing on photography, you've registered to become a member of the Professional Photographers of Canada. What the heck is it? I could probably guess, but why don't you explain it? And what is the process like?
So that one I've kind of had in the back of my mind for many years. I knew what the Professional Photographers of Canada was. Never really thought that I could be considered that level. I still, even though I get hired for shows and I get paid for shoots, I still consider myself fairly amateur. I have a hard time calling myself a professional. So for me, putting some accreditation behind my skill and ability is really important to me. And seeing as I'm taking this year to really focus on my business and on my knowledge and ability with a camera and with lights, and I'm going to add all that to the pot too. It means a lot to me personally to get some form of accreditation behind it as well. So I've signed up with the Professional Photographers of Canada for this year as what they call an observer. So I come in as a introductory member, and I get access to other professional photographers in my area and in other areas to learn from and grow with, and exposure to workshops and all of that stuff, with the end goal of submitting some works, I'm hoping, at the end of this year to get accredited in one, I'm hoping at least one category that they offer. And then, yeah, having that behind my name, saying that I am considered a professional photographer by others.
That's pretty cool. And I'm guessing that would, validate how hard you have worked, I'm sure. And then also, does it open up doors? Would it open up more opportunities?
Yes, definitely. Having an accreditation behind you is much like any other job or going to school and saying that you've got a degree in a certain field. It gives you more reputability in your field of interest, and they also have a list of accredited photographers available if you are looking for an accredited pro. Your name and your website and everything gets added to their list, so that if someone approaches one of our other members looking for someone in your specialized fields, now your name is on that list for them to pass on to the folks that are looking for someone just like you.
So there's marketing too, really. It gives you, connects you to people. Very, very cool, Krystina. Any tips for photographers who are trying to shoot at larger events? How does that happen?
I started shooting at larger events by approaching the coordinators and asking if it was okay if I shot. I don't the most important thing for me is knowing that I'm not stepping on another photographer's toes by being there. If someone else is hired to shoot the event, that's their event to shoot. So I'm not gonna step on that. So I think that's key for others wanting to get involved is check with your associations and clubs and everyone that's hosting their shows, and ask if it's okay for you to be there. 9 times out of 10, the associations don't pay for you to be there. So the money that you make off of your shooting is off of the sales from the show. So that can be a hard pill to swallow at first, because it's pretty lucrative. There's everybody and their dog out there with a camera nowadays, which again reiterates my desire to become accredited. So yeah, approach those clubs, approach those events, and just put yourself out there. The best thing you can do is step outside your comfort zone and see what happens. You're going to get told no time and time again, but eventually you're going to get told yes. And one day you're going to be shooting the Canadian Spectacular, and the rest is history.
Are there any shows that you have your sights set on as you expand your business that you're sort of working towards shooting?
I have one that I was really eager to go forward with, that I've actually just been awarded the contract for, so I will actually be paid to be there. So that does happen too. And that's the black elk cutting. They have a show in Ponoka in the spring and another in the fall. And they've taken me on for this spring, so we'll see how it goes. And outside of that, one goal that I've got my sights set on for hopefully this year, but we'll see what comes of it, is the Heritage Classic cutting in Chilliwack in April. So I'm approaching them to see what the option might be. They may already have someone in place. I don't know. I know they had someone there last year, which did a fantastic job. So it's just one of those things that it's home. So I want to go home, and I want to support all my friends. So it'd be really cool to be there.
That's wonderful. Your sister, I bet, would love to see you.
Yeah, and she'll be showing at that show. It was actually cool to see her this summer. She shows in the working cow horse world, so it's a little bit different than cutting. But she was in Claire's home this summer at a show, and we made the drive down to go visit while she was in the area. So cool to see her doing well too.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Any tips for people who are hiring a photographer to make the process easier and better for the photographer and their photos turn out better?
Know what you want, really. There's some folks and some associations I've spoken to that they don't know what they want. They don't know if they want all the classes covered. They don't know if they want win photos. They don't know if horses are okay with lighting setups. And I know a lot of those questions are probably hard for them to answer themselves to make the photographer's job easier. But I tell you, having an organized board to work with is amazing. I shot the final show for the Northern Alberta Rein Cow Horse Association here this fall, and they had the most organized team of people involved I've ever seen. It was fantastic. They had a win photo area set up for me. They had someone that would run and grab me when they needed to do win photos, instead of me trying to figure out where I needed to be and who I needed to have there to do the photo of. And it was fantastic. So really, show organizers, show hosts, event hosts, be as organized as you can. Get a detailed list from your photographer beforehand of what their needs are going to be, so that when everybody shows up on the day of the show, that it goes incredibly smoothly. It's nice to have that happen rather than show up and be like, oh, okay, so what do I do? Where do I go? Who am I expected to capture? It's nice to kind of take the variables out of it and know what you're there for.
That's great advice. What about for individual shoots? Like, let's say if you came to visit me, which you should one day, just saying,
Absolutely.
and I wanted you to take photos of me and my horses. What if I was the ideal client? What would I do? Be, say, where?
I'm actually going to try and introduce this year for private sessions. I haven't done it yet. I've just done it verbally, but I'm going to start sending out a little tips and tricks email to all of my clients beforehand, which is going to help them walk through what they should wear, what kind of location they should pick, any tricks or treats or anything to have on hand for their horse or dog or whoever to make everything go as smoothly as possible. Yeah, those are the biggest ones, I think. Just really making sure that you're organized, your horse is clean, your dog is groomed. We're not running around last minute trying to do that right as we're trying to get the session rolling. I know sometimes when I do mini shoots, they're 20-minute shoots thereabouts with 5 or 10 minutes between each shoot. So if we're trying to prep everything in that 5 or 10 minutes between shoots, that can get quite chaotic.
I bet. Wardrobe, do you have a preference in like what stands out well on camera or works with the shot well on camera?
It's really kind of open. This is hard for me because I love bright neon colors, but those ones don't photograph quite so well. Neutral hues, whites and blues turn out really good. Burgundies, those deeper, richer colors tend to be quite nice on film. And if there's more than one person involved, try to get everybody not necessarily 100% all matchy, but as close to even as you can. It's hard if you've got one person in an orange shirt over here and another person in a purple shirt over there. It just doesn't look as clean and professional. So while the image itself may be done by a professional and the quality is professional, sometimes it can end up looking like a bit of a mishmash in the end if it's not uniform.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that was all the questions that I had. Is there anything that we missed, Krystina? You did such a good job answering questions. Anything interesting about cutting or photography that you're like, man, these girls just did not tap into?
No, I think you got the majority of it. I mean, I do what I love, so I love what I do. So it's a challenge at times working full time and getting horses worked and everything else to keep her rolling, but I'm doing what I can, and it's an absolute blast. And the people that I've met through doing what I do has provided me with some new really good, really cool friends. So it's been a great venture to take on.
That's just wonderful. Now, please promote yourself. So, website, Instagram, how can people get a hold of you?
You can get me on my website, which is KrystinaLynnPhoto.com. My name's spelled kind of funny, so it's KrystinalYnn photo.com. And then I'm on Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook, Krystina Lynn Photography, and on Instagram, it's Krystina.Lynn.photo, because Krystina Lynn Photo was taken, apparently. So yeah, you can hit me up there. My website is kind of under construction right now. I'm trying to refresh everything for the new year coming up, and try and make it more user-friendly for everybody and update everything, because I think all of my my portfolio is from back when I still lived on the coast in the Lower Mainland. So that's 3.5 years. But yeah, that's where you can get me.
Wonderful. And I do encourage people to, even though your website is being updated, the portfolio that's on there is beautiful. So I still encourage people to go onto your website, look at those photos for inspiration too, because they're just lovely.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And you can still get all of the old 2018 and 2019 show galleries on there too if you didn't order your show photos yet.
Awesome. Well, I think, is that a wrap?
I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
If you want more Friends on Horses, you can find us on Facebook at Friends on Horses Podcast.
Check it out for all the latest and greatest horsey news.
You can find us on the web at friendsonhorsespodcast.com
or Instagram at friendsonhorses_podcast.
Like what you hear? Help us quit our hay jobs by supporting Friends on Horses. You can support us by rating our episodes on iTunes.
Becoming an ongoing sponsor through Patreon.
Or simply by spreading the word about our show.
Have some feedback?
We'd love to hear from you.
Contact us via email at friendsonhorses@gmail.com.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.